Will there be an impact player in the transfer portal? That's at least the indication. Eric Cain locked on Vols. Rickey Gibson started for Tennessee last year, Eric, but he said he wants to go into the spring portal window. What's going on here?
Yeah, I mean it's one of those harsh realities that at the end of the day, you, me, we're all college football fans, and we do this podcast, and college football fans watch and they communicate with us. I mean the love for the game is there from all angles, and it's one of those harsh realities that kind of smacks us in the face, where it's just like, hey, this is very much a business. This is amateurism's pretty much out the door. This is very much a business, and Rickey Gibson sees that Tennessee's All-American cornerback, his fellow starter, Jamal McCoy, tore his ACL in December, offseason training. He's going to be out for spring, going to be out all offseason, going to be back towards the beginning of 2025. But seeing that he's hurt and, Rickey Gibson is a returning starter, he kind of has some leverage right now. And so he and his team made a public play to try to force the hand of Tennessee. Like, man, you can't afford to miss me. Like, give me more money. And I wouldn't have played it that way, but that's kind of what they did. And I think that's something that fans just have a hard time. You don't see public plays like this all over the country, but there are plays like this literally all over the country. That's just the nature of the beast. So that's kind of where we are. I expect Rickey Gibson to be at spring practice. It begins on Friday. There's a lot of confidence that this is going to work itself out. He's not going to be going anywhere. But essentially, his team leaked it to On3 National a couple weeks ago that this is what we're going to do to have that public forcing of the hand to try to get some more money.
So last year, Tennessee's defense was the biggest reason that they were in the playoff at 10-2. Why I thought they had a chance to make a run. The offense, of course, wasn't there. The defense couldn't stop Ohio State, but nobody could really stop Ohio State consistently there. But is there a world where the Vols line up week one and don't have two of their starting defensive backs from last year's unit?
Yeah, I mean, there's a world where that happens. It's a world I don't want to live in, but there's a world. I mean, there's growing confidence that Jamal McCoy is going to be back for the start of the season. But I mean, listen, I understand modern technology, and I get that an ACL tear is not what it used to be. I mean, that used to be a career ender. He will play football next football season. I am not confident he's going to be ready snap one, so I'm not even thinking that he's going to be ready snap one, game one. And I mean, there's confidence that they're going to work this thing out with Rickey Gibson for sure, and getting back out there with his teammates and going through drills and all that. I mean, I think that works a lot of wonders as well. So, but I mean, at the end of the day, they gotta make a decision there, and I think Tennessee's going to do everything they can to hold on to Rickey Gibson. But to answer your question, yeah, there's 100% a world where that could happen. I think it's less than 50% because I think Gibson ends up staying. But yeah, there's a world where that happens, and that's not a world, again, that I want to live in.
Yeah. Do you think that Gibson has a higher likelihood to come back to Tennessee, rework his NIL deal, and this was all just, a PR play to get Tennessee to be skittish? Or do you think he winds up in the portal? Because if he were to go into the transfer portal, Eric, you don't know who's going to wind up entering and leaving their school and such when the spring portal window comes around in early April, but He to me would probably be one of the higher profile defensive backs. I mean, he'd be one of the more proven guys. Certainly, I think that would go into the portal there. So where do you kind of place the odds on whether he becomes available for someone else to go and get?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not ruling it out. Certainly, I know that's kind of the plan right now. But the goal for Rickey Gibson, to my understanding, and his team is to get a new deal and stay at Tennessee. They want to stay at Tennessee, but I mean, you've got leverage. You've got a ton of leverage right now. There's not a whole lot of depth behind those couple guys, him and McCoy at corner to begin with. McCoy's out right now, so your team's kind of like, well, let's strike while the iron's hot. So I think the goal is to stay at Tennessee. I've got confidence that Tennessee's going to get that done. So I would lean more towards him getting a new deal and staying here at Tennessee. But if he does end up entering the portal, he will be one of the most attractive names for sure. Not because he had 12 interceptions last year. He didn't have the 12 interceptions last year, but he is a young, rising junior, started every game last year for a college football playoff team that had a top 10 defense. There's not many of those guys out there in the portal, to your point. So if he were to make it actually end up in the portal when it opens, he is going to be one of the top 5 names available, no doubt. But Tennessee fans are hoping, and I've got confidence that it won't get to that point.
Speaking of the portal, I've been on an exploratory mission here on the show to figure out who every team's most important transfer is that has to pop for you to get close to hitting your ceiling in 2025. Who is that for the Vols?
Yeah, well, Tennessee only got 4 transfers, not a whole lot of movement all on the offensive side of the football, 2 of which were offensive linemen, one of which is going to be, I mean, I don't want to call him a third string running back because he will play, but he's not going to be RB1, the bell cow, like Dylan Sampson was. And then the other's a wide receiver that didn't play one snap for Alabama last year. So very underwhelming portal season for the Vols as they were focusing on retaining the roster, making new deals for a lot of guys like Mike Matthews, Boo Carter, Jermon McCoy, and more. But the most important in my eyes is Notre Dame transfer offensive lineman Sam Pendleton. He started first half of the season at guard for the Fighting Irish, worked a little bit at center in practice. The back half of the season when they got healthier on the offensive line, he went to the bench, but still played, was that key reserve for, guard, center, guard. Tennessee's losing 4 starters on the offensive line. Tennessee needs 2 guards and a center, and Pendleton can play either one of those. So where does he best fit this spring? I think it's a big question. So I'm going to be watching him and Amari Jefferson, the wide receiver I was referencing from Alabama, a guy that Tennessee wanted in the recruiting cycle a year before. He wanted to play for Nick Saban. Went to Alabama, Nick Saban retired. Okay, well, I'm going to go back home to Tennessee, and that's kind of where we are. Just a whole lot of unproven stuff there. But I'll go Sam Pendleton. I know that's not sexy, but Tennessee needs some offensive linemen.
I don't think there's anything sexier in the world than offensive line play.
There we go. A true football guy.
Yeah, a well-blocked running play where everyone has their assignment and wins their 1v1. I tell you what, that's really, really the good stuff. But is Tennessee quietly the Clemson of the SEC where they're just kind of like, hands off with the portal? Or do you think this is just kind of a one-year cyclical outcome for Josh Heupel where it's, we're not, going heavy in the portal here? Because I think a lot of places would lose 2 receivers the caliber of Squirrel White and Dante Thornton and think, we got to go hit the portal hard and replace that production now. And Tennessee seems like, we got a guy, but like other than that, we're fine.
No, 100% no. I cannot disagree more. I mean, I don't cover Clemson, but Dabo's approach for years, and he's changed it a little bit, but Dabo's approach for years was, no, I don't believe in that. That's not good for the game. We're not going to be a part of that life, No, thank you. No, Tennessee's been very active in the portal, throughout Josh Heupel's tenure here. Brew McCoy came via the portal. Hendon Hooker technically came via the portal. That was the previous coaching regime, but Joe Milton came via the portal. Dante Thornton came via, so on and so forth. So they're very active in the portal. I just think that the main focus this year was roster retention. And Tennessee explored some wide receivers, and they were in on a few wide receivers. But ultimately, either Tennessee moved on because they didn't like it or didn't like the asking price, or the target went to another school or whatever the case is. So I think Tennessee's very much going to be looking for a wide receiver and potentially a cornerback in the spring window. Especially if Rickey Gibson goes in the portal, they'll absolutely go get a corner. But Tennessee's going to get a guy or 2 out of the spring portal window, and one of those is going to be wide receiver. I just think that the focus is more on roster retention. So to answer your question, I think it's more of a one-off because Tennessee is very much a team that does play in the portal.